Hello, today I'm reviewing Cash and Guns, which is a very fun party game where the players are a group of gangsters who have gathered to split their loot. However, no one wants to share evenly, so guns are drawn, bullets fly, and whoever makes off with the most loot at the end wins. The game plays 4 to 8 players. Whilst it does work with all numbers, it's probably more comfortable in the higher end, so 6 or more. And this is the second edition. I haven't actually played the first edition, but I am aware of the differences, and I will try and explain them as best I can here. So basically, how does the game work? Well, you can see all the components here. Each round there are cards dealt out, and there are 8 different loot cards dealt out. And there's exactly enough cards for 8 rounds of play. And then the players, they have a hand of 8 cards as well, 1 for each round. And in their hand they have 3 red bang cards and 5 blue click cards. This means that for the entire game they have only got 3 bullets to actually fire, so they can't just shoot every round and kill everybody. They have to selectively pick, so you have to be very careful when you're going to fire your bullets and when you're going to choose not to. So which round's got the best loot, or which round thinks the loot's better for you, or which just basically when you want to kill somebody. So at the beginning of each round, the cards will be dealt out, so players will see what's on offer, and then the players will pick whether they want to fire or not. So they will pick either a click or a bang, put it down face down in front of them, and then on the count of 3, all players will point their guns at another player. So just point across the table, and then everyone will have their guns pointing. Then if you have a gun pointed at you, you have to decide whether or not you think you're going to get shot. So if you think you're going to get shot, you might want to duck out and live to fight another round, or you might just want to take the risk. If you don't have any guns aimed at you at all, then you're safe, you're fine. Then every player reveals whether they're firing or not. If you have been shot, you are knocked out of the round. If not, you survive, and you get to divide up the loot amongst the other players who've also survived. The way you cover that is you'll have each player will take one of these little standees. Say that's me here. This is me standing. If I was in the shootout and I decided to duck into cover, I just lay myself down. That means that I can't take loot. If I stayed and I got shot, I would then lay myself down again, but I'd also take one of these little wound counters. And all players can take 3 wound counters before they are dead and they are removed from the game completely. They can no longer win the game because you're dead. If your character is lying down, you do not get to pick loot. If you're standing up, you do. Starting with the first player is the player who possesses this token. You get to pick 1 loot card, and then it goes round in turn order until all the loot cards have been taken. One of them is this desk, which you flip over to indicate that you are taking the first player token. First player is the Godfather, as it's written in the rules. The one advantage of the Godfather is that when everyone's pointing their guns, the Godfather can tell one person to change who they're aiming at. So if you're the Godfather and you've just got 1 gun aimed at you, you're going to tell that player, no, shoot somebody else. Other than that, obviously they get first pick. So that's the basic setup. How does this differ from the original? Well, in the original version, you only had the monetary value banknotes. Those are the only loots. There's different types of loot now in this version. But in the original, there was only money, and you had 6 cards, and the money was only divided equally amongst the players. So if there were 3 players standing, say there were 3 20s, 2 10s, and a 5, that makes 85. If there were 3 players still standing, that can't be divided entirely equally. So each player would take a 20, then the 2 10s and a 5 can't divide amongst the 3, so they stay on the table. So you only get an equal share of whoever's standing. So basically that means that there's more encouragement to have less people standing because it divides more easily that way, and you get larger sums. Whatever couldn't be divided stayed on the table and was then added to the next batch of cards that was drawn out. In this version, you still have the money, you still have 5s, 10s and 20s, but you also have paintings amongst the loot cards. So these are paintings. Paintings only have 1 value, but the more paintings you have, the higher that value is. So 1 painting is only worth 4,000, whereas 2 paintings is worth 12,000, 3 is worth 30, 4 is worth 60, 5 is worth 100, so it ranks up really quickly. If you can manage to get all 10, there's only 10 in the deck, you get 500,000, which is pretty easily a winning deck. I mean, 6 is 150,000, which is probably going to be a winning score, 150,000. You also have diamonds. Diamonds are relatively low value. 5 is one of the higher value diamonds. Mostly they're about 1s and 2s. But at the end of the game, whoever has the most diamond cards, not the most value, but the most cards with diamonds on it, gains a $60,000 bonus for the big diamond. So that can be a swinger. You can be doing rubbish at money, but you might be collecting lots of little diamonds and hoping on that bonus swings you over the edge. In addition, you have a reload. Now, reload is quite simple. when people spend their cards, they go into the discard pile, so you only ever have the right number of cards for the right number of rounds. If you have a bang in your discard pile and you pick up a reload card, you take it out, put it back in your hand and replace it with a click. So basically it gives you a fourth shot for the game, which can be incredibly useful. There's not too many of these in the deck, but they are kind of circumstantial. The last thing is this medkit. The medkit is in the loot. If you pick up a medkit, it heals all your wounds. So that can be an act of desperation, especially if you've got 2 wounds and you're potentially going to die next. You think, well, I know I want some money, but I'd better take this just so that I survive to the end of the game. That's the basic changes there. The original game did have a bang 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 card in the player's hand, which basically was an instant kill. And a secret policeman variant, or one of the players at the table was an undercover cop who was trying to call for backup. But those variants aren't in this game. They're not in this one at all. This is just straight up, guns pointing, take the loot. An added extra in this game that I believe wasn't in the original is these power cards. So you can play with these. There's loads of them. There's 16 of them, I think. But what you do is you deal out 2 to each player at the beginning of the game, and then they get to pick one, which gives them a power for the game. So we have the cunning. This player is allowed to change his bullet card at the end of the hold up. So once you know who's pointing at everyone, you're allowed to change whether you were firing or not. That can be useful. The unbreakable. This player is eliminated on their 5th wound, not their 3rd. So they have 2 extra wounds to everybody else. These actually aren't that difficult to incorporate, and they actually add quite a lot. They seem kind of like they might just confuse things, but actually they're really quite good. I do recommend giving them a try. I'd play it without them the first few times, but then don't be afraid to chuck them in. As I said at the beginning of the review, I haven't actually played the original, but a lot of reviews and stuff have said that this is a vast improvement. They really like the way it kind of speeds things up, I guess. The extra loot items, people say, works really well, not just the money. I did play this a couple of times just using the money as if it was like with the original rules, and it was okay, but it just didn't work quite as well as this new system does. Yeah, do I like this game? Yeah, I really like this game. It's really good. It's really simple. You play it and then you immediately want to play it again. You can just play and play. It's really unpredictable as well, which I actually quite like. A lot of these sorts of games you can see who the winner is. I think I've always been surprised who the winner is in this. Someone's either snuck in with the diamonds, or somebody was hoarding paintings, or somebody was just getting loads of cards and somehow we've managed to not notice. Or people just get killed in the last couple of rounds, and suddenly you're like, well, they were going to win, so we all shot them, and now we have no idea who's in the lead. It's a really good game. You don't get too hung up on whether you're winning or not anyway. You're obviously trying to gather the best loot you can, but it's not the hyper competitive. It's just kind of a fun activity, and everyone likes playing with their little foam guns. I understand that the guns in the original were all orange. These are black, so I guess they're slightly more. They're not really realistic, but they're a slightly more realistic colour, I suppose. But it's a super fun game. I do recommend it. I think it's relatively cheap as well. It's just kind of all round really good game. There you go, that's Cash and Guns, nice and simple, easy review. Hopes that sounds appealing. I'd recommend playing it if it does appeal to you. And I will see you in the next video. The end.